My ex asked me to be her fake boyfriend for the reunion. And I said yes, even though she broke my heart 3 years ago. One dinner, one performance, that was the deal. But halfway through the night, I noticed the ring still on her finger. The one I gave her, the one she swore she'd return. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy stories like this one, take a quick second to like and subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Now, let's get back to the video. Let me take you back 3 years, to the night she left without really explaining why. But first, you should know who I was before all of this. My name doesn't matter much. I'm 28 now, I fix problems for a living, and I'm the kind of person who shows up early and stays late and never makes a scene. People call me steady. My mother calls me predictable. I used to think those were the same thing. They're not. 3 years ago, I was 25 and I was in love with a woman named Claire. We'd been together 2 years. I had a small box in my sock drawer with a ring inside it, and I had a plan for a Tuesday in October because she always said Tuesdays were underrated. I never got to that Tuesday. She left on a Sunday. I remember it was raining, the kind of slow rain that doesn't commit to anything. She stood by the door with one bag, not even all her things, just one bag, and she said she couldn't do this anymore. I asked her what this was. I asked her what I did. She wouldn't look at me. She said it wasn't me, which is the thing people say right before they walk out, and then she walked out. The ring stayed in the sock drawer. I gave it to her anyway, weeks later, in a moment I'm not proud of, half hoping it would make her stop and explain. She took it. She said she'd return it when she could. She never did. I told myself she'd sold it or thrown it away, and I tried to stop thinking about it. For 3 years, that worked. Mostly. Now back to last Thursday. I was on my couch eating cold noodles straight from the container when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first, but I recognized the area code, and something in my chest tightened before my brain caught up. I almost didn't answer. I want you to know that. I had my thumb over the decline button, but I've never been good at leaving a phone ringing. Hello? Hey, it's me. It's Claire. I didn't say anything for a second. 3 years of silence, and then it's me. Like no time had passed at all, like she hadn't disappeared out of my life with a single bag. I know this is weird, she said. I know I have no right to call you. You don't, I said, but I didn't hang up. She laughed a little nervous. I remembered that laugh. I hated that I remembered it. I need a favor, she said. And before you say no, just hear me out, okay? It's a small thing. It's one night. I put the noodles down. What is it? She took a breath. My high school reunion is on Saturday, the big one, 10 years. And everyone's going to be there, and everyone's married now, or engaged, or showing off, and I told someone a while ago that I was seeing somebody, that it was serious. She stopped. It wasn't true. I'm not seeing anybody. And now I have to walk in there alone unless I do something about it. So do something about it, I said. What does this have to do with me? I want you to come with me as my boyfriend. She said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. Just for the night. We pretend. We show up, we smile, we leave. You don't have to mean any of it. I just can't walk in there by myself and have everyone look at me like I'm the one who couldn't make anything work. I should have said no. Every reasonable part of me was saying no. This was a woman who had walked out of my life and never told me why, and now she wanted me to perform a relationship we didn't have so her old classmates wouldn't pity her. It was insulting. It was the kind of thing you say no to and then feel good about saying no to. Why me? I asked instead. You could ask anyone. She was quiet for a moment. Because you're the only one who could do it convincingly, she said. Because we were good at being us. People believed us. People believed us. That landed somewhere I didn't want it to. It's one dinner, she said. One performance. I'll owe you. I'll pay you. Whatever you want. I just need this. I looked around my apartment. Cold noodles. A Thursday night with nothing in it. 3 years of telling myself I was over something I clearly wasn't. Because here I was, heart going fast, already knowing what I was going to say. One night, I said, we show up, we leave by 10. And after that, we go back to not knowing each other. Yes, she said quickly. Exactly that, thank you. You don't know what this means. We worked out the details. A coffee shop the next day to get our story straight. She'd text me the address. She thanked me 3 more times before she hung up. And then the line went dead, and I was sitting there in the quiet with the phone still warm in my hand. I stared at it for a long time. I already knew I was making a mistake. I'd known it before I said yes. The problem with being predictable is that you can see the wreck coming and you walk toward it anyway. Because somewhere underneath the steady, careful person everyone relies on, there's a part of you that never stopped waiting for that phone to ring. I just didn't know yet about the ring. That part was still coming. The coffee shop was one neither of us had been to before. I noticed that right away. She'd picked neutral ground, somewhere with no memories attached, and I understood the logic even if it stung a little. We'd had places once, now we needed a place that meant nothing. I got there 10 minutes early because that's who I am. She got there 5 minutes late, which was also who she was. Some things don't change in 3 years. She came through the door in a gray coat I didn't recognize, scanning the room, and when she saw me, her face did something complicated before it settled into a polite smile. Hi, she said, sitting down across from me. Thank you for coming. Again, you already thanked me 4 times on the phone. I know, I'm nervous. She set her bag down. I didn't think you'd actually show up. I said I would. You always did do what you said. She looked at me for a second too long, then pulled a folded piece of paper out of her bag and smoothed it flat on the table. Okay, I made some rules. I think it'll be easier if we have rules. I almost laughed. You made a list. Of course I made a list. That was the most her thing she could have done, and I hated how familiar it felt. She used to make lists for everything. Grocery lists, weekend lists, lists of movies we were never going to watch. I leaned back and let her go through it. Rule 1, she said. We hold hands when we walk in and when people are watching. Nothing else. No arm around the shoulder, no anything else. Fine, rule 2, we keep the backstory simple. We've been together about a year. We met through a friend. We don't go into detail because the more detail we add, the more we have to remember, and the more we can get caught. Reasonable, I said. Rule 3. She paused here, and her voice changed slightly. No real talk. We don't talk about us, the old us. What happened? None of it. Tonight we're playing characters, and those characters don't have our history. They have a clean one. If we start dragging the real stuff in, it'll show on our faces, and people will know. I looked at her. You think people can read your face that well? You always could, she said, and then she moved on quickly, like she hadn't meant to say it. Rule 4, we leave by 10, no staying for the after party, no drinks at someone's house, no extending it. We go in, we get through it, we leave. That one was my rule, I said. I'm aware. I'm putting it on the list so it's official. I picked up the paper and read it over. Her handwriting was the same, small and slanted and a little impatient. There was a 5th rule at the bottom that she'd crossed out before I got there. I could still read it under the line. It said, don't make it weird. I didn't mention it. She saw me see it and pulled the paper back. That one's not relevant, she said. Okay, the waiter came by. She ordered a flat white with an extra shot. I ordered a black coffee, and before the waiter finished writing, she said, he'll want it with one of those little cookies on the side. The shortbread ones, if you have them. The waiter nodded and left. I stared at her. What? She said. You remembered. Remembered what? The cookie thing, the shortbread. She looked away. It's not a big deal. People remember things. But it was a big deal, and we both knew it, because nobody remembers the cookie a person liked 3 years after they stopped seeing them unless that person mattered. She'd remembered without thinking about it. It came out of her automatically, the way you reach for a light switch in a house you used to live in. I didn't push it, but I filed it away. We spent the next half hour going over logistics. Who would be there? Names I should know. A woman named Dana, who Claire said would interrogate us, who'd been waiting years for Claire to fail at something. A guy named Marcus, an ex of hers from before me, who she said would probably be there with his wife. I asked if I needed to be jealous of Marcus for the sake of the act. She said no, that Marcus was a closed book. I noticed she didn't say the same about me. By the time the coffee arrived, the conversation had loosened. That was the dangerous part. We slipped, both of us. She told a story about her sister, and I laughed at the punchline before she got to it because I already knew it. I'd been there the first time it happened, and for a second the table felt like it used to feel. Easy. Then she caught herself, and I caught myself, and we both pulled back at the same time. Rule 3, no real talk. The history kept leaking in through the cracks, no matter how careful we were. This is going to be harder than I thought, she said quietly. The reunion, the pretending. She turned her cup in a slow circle. I thought it would be like acting, like reading lines. But it's not lines if you actually know the person. We can still pull it off, I said. We just stick to the rules. Right, the rules. She didn't sound convinced. We agreed I'd pick her up Saturday at 6. She wrote her new address on a napkin and slid it across to me. As she did, I noticed she was wearing gloves, the thin kind, even though it wasn't that cold inside. I thought it was strange, but I didn't say anything. I had no idea yet what those gloves were hiding, or that by the end of Saturday night, everything between us would stop being pretend. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story so far, go ahead and drop a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. All right, let's get back to it. Saturday came faster than I wanted it to. I spent most of the day telling myself it was just a favor, a few hours, and then it would be over. I ironed a shirt I didn't need to iron. I changed it twice. I told myself that didn't mean anything either. I got to her address at 6 exactly. It was a small apartment building on the East Side, nicer than the place she'd had when we were together. I sat in my car for a minute before I went up. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't nervous. I was. I went over the rules in my head like they were going to protect me from something. She buzzed me up. When she opened the door, I forgot the rules for a second. She was wearing a dark green dress, simple, nothing flashy, and she'd done her hair the way she used to do it for things that mattered to her. She looked at me standing there in my iron shirt, and something passed over her face that I couldn't name. "You look nice," she said. "So do you." "Don't say it like that. Say it like you mean it. We're supposed to be convincing." "I do mean it," I said, and then neither of us knew what to do with that, so she grabbed her coat and we went down to the car. The drive was supposed to be 25 minutes. It felt longer. She sat in the passenger seat with her hands in her lap, and I noticed she was wearing the gloves again, the thin ones, even though the heater was on and it was a mild evening. I didn't ask. I decided in the car that I wasn't going to ask about anything that wasn't part of the act. "Okay," she said, after a few minutes of silence. "Let's go over it. How did we meet?" "Through a friend. About a year ago." "Which friend?" "We agreed to keep it vague. If someone pushes, we say my coworker introduced us at a dinner thing." "Good," she nodded. "What do I do for work?" "You still do the marketing job, the same one." I glanced at her. "Unless that changed." It didn't. She seemed surprised that I knew, and then she remembered that of course I knew. I'd known her when she got that job. "What about you? What's our story about your work?" "The truth. I fix problems for a company. It's boring and nobody asks follow-up questions." She almost smiled. "It was never boring when you talked about it." I let that sit. It was the kind of thing that landed too close to Rule 3, and she knew it the moment she said it because she turned and looked out the window. We kept drifting like that the whole drive. We'd start on the script, the clean version, the fake couple with the fake history, and then a real memory would surface and pull us off course. She mentioned a song on the radio, and I knew exactly why she liked it. I mentioned the long way around to the venue, and she knew I always took the long way. Every time it happened, one of us would catch it and steer us back to the rules. But the rules were getting harder to hold on to. At one point, she shifted in her seat, and the streetlight caught her hand, and I saw a glint of something through the thin fabric of the glove. Just a flash. I didn't think much of it. People wear jewelry. I figured it was a bracelet or a watch. I turned my eyes back to the road. "Can I ask you something that's not against the rules?" I said. "Depends on the question. Why does this reunion matter so much to you? You hated high school. You told me that more than once." She was quiet for a moment. "Because the people who knew me back then are the people who will decide what my whole life added up to. That's how reunions work. You walk in and everyone does the math on you in about 30 seconds. And I don't want the answer they come up with to be that I'm the one who never figured it out." "You did figure it out," I said. "You have a good job. You have your own place. You're doing fine." "Alone, though," she said it flatly. "That's the part they'll see. Everyone else paired off and built something, and I'm the one who keeps starting over." She looked down at her gloved hands. "I just want one night where I look like I got it right, too." I didn't know what to say to that. There was a real answer somewhere. Something honest about the fact that she'd been the one who left, that she could have had the thing she was pretending to have, but it was sitting in my chest, and it wasn't going to help either of us tonight. So I kept it there. "We'll sell it," I said instead. "Nobody's going to do the math on you tonight. They're going to look at you and think you got it right." She turned and looked at me, and for a second the polite distance was gone, and it was just her, the way she used to look at me before any of this happened. "Thank you," she said, "and not the 4 times on the phone thank you, the real one." We pulled into the parking lot. The venue was a hotel ballroom, lit up, with people in nice clothes filing in through the front doors. I could see a few of them already, laughing in groups, the kind of easy laughter people perform when they want to look happy in front of their old classmates. I parked and shut off the engine. We sat there for a second. "Last chance to back out," I said. "No," she said. "We're doing this." She reached over and took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine, practicing for the door. Her hand was warm even through the glove. "Ready?" I asked. "Ready," she said. We got out of the car and walked toward the lights together. The ballroom was loud the second we walked in. Music, voices, the clink of glasses, all of it pushing at us. There was a table by the entrance with name tags laid out and a woman behind it who lit up when she saw Claire. Claire, oh my gosh, you came. I came, Claire said, and her whole manner shifted. She turned warm and bright in a way that I knew was at least partly an act, because I'd seen the version of her in the car 10 minutes ago, the one who was scared of being judged. This version showed none of that. She found her name tag, then picked up a blank one and wrote my name on it and stuck it to my shirt herself, smoothing it down with her hand. The woman behind the table watched us and smiled. "And who's this?" "This is the boyfriend," Claire said, squeezing my hand. "I told you about him." You did. Well, it's nice to finally meet the famous boyfriend." I shook her hand and said something polite. We moved past the table and into the room, and the moment we were a few steps away, Claire leaned in close. "That was Becca," she said quietly. "She talks to everyone. By the end of the night, the whole room will know you exist." So we passed the first test. We passed Becca. That's the easy one. We moved through the room together. People kept recognizing Claire, calling her name, pulling her into short conversations, and each time she introduced me the same way, as her boyfriend. And each time her hand found mine without her having to think about it. That was the part that started to get to me. The hand-holding was supposed to be rule one, something deliberate, something we did when people were watching. But she wasn't checking who was watching anymore. She just reached for me, the way you reach for something you're used to. And here's the thing I didn't expect. It wasn't hard. Standing next to her, answering questions about our fake relationship, laughing at the right moments, leaning in when she leaned in, none of it felt like work. It felt natural, frighteningly natural. We had a rhythm that we'd never lost, and the lie was easy to tell because the shape of it was true. We had been good at being us. People believed us, just like she'd said, and the reason they believed us was that some part of it wasn't an act at all. About an hour in, a woman cornered us near the bar. Sharp eyes, a glass of wine, the kind of smile that's looking for something to use against you. I knew who it was before Claire said anything. Dana. "Claire," Dana said, "look at you, and you brought someone. I honestly didn't think you would." "Why wouldn't I?" Claire said lightly. "No reason." Dana turned to me. "So how long have you two been together?" "About a year," I said. "A year. And it's serious?" "Serious enough that I'm here," I said. And Dana's smile tightened a notch, because that's the kind of answer that doesn't give her anything to work with. She kept probing. Where did we meet? What did I do? Did we live together? Claire and I traded the answers back and forth, smooth the way we'd rehearsed, and a few times we finished each other's sentences without planning to, which did more to convince Dana than any rehearsed line could have. By the end, she gave up and drifted off to find easier prey. "That was Dana," Claire said when she was gone. "I figured you handled her well. I had good motivation. She seemed like she wanted you to fail. She's wanted me to fail since we were 16. Claire looked at me. "You didn't have to defend me, though. That wasn't part of the deal. It came out automatically," I said, which was the truth and which neither of us knew what to do with. A little later, the music slowed and people started moving toward the open floor in the center of the room. Claire excused herself to find the restroom, and I stood off to the side near a hallway that led away from the noise. It was quieter there. I needed a minute. The whole night was sitting heavier on me than I'd planned for, because the pretending kept feeling less like pretending, and I didn't know what to do with that. She found me in the hallway a few minutes later. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood next to me, both of us out of view of the main room, the music coming through muffled. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine, just needed to breathe." "It's a lot, isn't it?" She wasn't really asking. "Being in there, performing, something like that." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're good at this. Better than I thought you'd be." "I keep forgetting it's not real." I looked at her. We were standing closer than the rules called for, and there was no one in the hallway to perform for. This wasn't for show. This was just us in a quiet hallway, and the distance we'd been holding on to all night had somehow disappeared. "Claire," I said. "Don't." She shook her head, but she didn't step back. "Don't make it weird." That was on the list. "You crossed that one out." She almost laughed. Almost. For a second, I thought one of us might say the real thing, the thing that had been sitting underneath every conversation since Thursday. Her eyes searched my face. My hand was near hers, and it would have taken nothing to close the distance. Then a burst of laughter came from the ballroom, loud, breaking the moment, and she stepped back and smoothed her dress. "They'll wonder where we went," she said. Right. We walked back toward the noise together. But something had shifted in that hallway, and we both knew it, and neither of us said a word about it. Back in the ballroom, someone was tapping a microphone. A man in a blazer stood near the front, asking everyone to gather, saying it was time for a few words before the night went on. People drifted toward him with their drinks. Claire and I ended up near the middle of the crowd, her hand back in mine, both of us facing forward. The man gave the kind of speech you'd expect. 10 years. Look how far we've come. Who would have thought? People laughed at the right places. Then he raised his glass and asked everyone to do the same. A toast to the class, to old friends, to the next 10 years. Everyone lifted their drinks. Claire lifted hers too. And that was when it happened. She had taken the gloves off at some point during the night. I hadn't noticed exactly when. But when she raised her glass, her hand came up into the light from the chandeliers, and something on her finger caught that light and held it. A thin band, a small stone. I knew it before my brain would let me admit I knew it. It was the ring. Not a ring. The ring. The one that had sat in my sock drawer for 2 years waiting for a Tuesday in October. The one I'd handed to her in a moment I wasn't proud of, weeks after she left, half hoping it would make her stop and explain. The one she'd taken and said she would return when she could. The one I'd told myself she'd sold or thrown away because thinking anything else was too much to carry. She was wearing it on the night she'd asked me to pretend. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The toast finished, glasses came down, people drank, the room moved on. But I was somewhere else now. I was standing in that room, holding the hand of a woman wearing a ring I gave her 3 years ago. A ring she'd lied about returning, and nothing about the night made sense the way it had a minute ago. I tried to do the math the way Dana would. Maybe she wore it because it was just a nice ring and she liked it. Maybe she'd forgotten where it came from, but that didn't hold up. You don't forget a ring like that. And the gloves. The gloves all night, in the car, at the coffee shop on Friday, indoors where no one wears gloves. She'd been hiding it. She knew she was wearing it, and she didn't want me to see, which meant she knew exactly what it was, and she'd put it on anyway. "You all right?" she asked. She'd felt something change in my hand, maybe, or seen it on my face. She was always good at reading my face. She'd said so herself. "Yeah," I said. "Fine. Just warm in here." She studied me for a second longer than I wanted, then let it go. The man with the microphone said something else, and the music came back up, and people started moving again, toward the bar, toward the dance floor, into the noise. Claire turned to say something to a woman who'd appeared beside her, and I stood there with my own glass and tried to think. Why was she still wearing it? That was the question, and I couldn't get past it. If she'd kept the ring all this time, that meant she'd lied to me 3 years ago when she said she'd give it back. But more than that, it meant she'd held on to it. Through 3 years of silence. Through whatever life she'd built without me. She'd kept the ring I gave her, and then tonight, the one night she'd see me again, she'd put it on her hand and tried to cover it up so I wouldn't notice. People don't do that with rings that mean nothing. The whole story of the night flipped over in my head. The phone call out of nowhere, the reunion as the reason, the way her hand kept finding mine without being told to. The cookie she remembered. The hallway where for a second she didn't step back. I'd spent all night telling myself the closeness was just good acting, that we were convincing because we used to be real. But maybe it wasn't acting at all. Maybe the favor was never really about the reunion. Maybe she'd needed a reason to see me again, and the reunion was the one she could say out loud. I watched her across the small space between us, laughing at something, the ring catching the light every time she moved her hand, and I felt the whole careful structure of the night, the rules, the script, the clean fake history, start to come apart. None of it was clean. None of it had ever been clean. We'd both walked in here pretending the past was somewhere we'd left behind, and the past had been on her finger the entire time. I should have just asked her. Right there, held up her hand and asked her what it meant. But I didn't, because if I asked and the answer was something small and ordinary, then I'd have to go back to telling myself the lie I'd been telling for 3 years. And I didn't think I could do that anymore. As long as I didn't ask, the question stayed open, and as long as it stayed open, there was a version of tonight where it meant exactly what it looked like it meant. The woman beside her moved off. Claire turned back to me. "What?" she said. "You're looking at me strange. Am I? You've been quiet since the toast." "I'm thinking," I said. "About what?" I looked at her hand, at the ring, and she followed my eyes down to it, and I watched the color leave her face as she realized she'd taken the gloves off, that she'd lifted her glass without thinking, that I'd seen. "That's a nice ring," I said quietly. "Where'd you get it?" She didn't answer. She didn't answer, and she didn't get the chance to. because Dana appeared again before the silence could stretch into anything. There you two are, Dana said, sliding into the space beside us with a fresh glass of wine. I've been meaning to come back around. You disappeared for a while there. We needed air, Claire said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the strain underneath it, the part only I would catch. She slid her hand down and pressed it against the side of her dress, turning the ring inward, hiding the stone against her palm. I watched her do it. So, Dana said, settling in, a whole year together, and I'm only hearing about him now. That's very you, Claire. Always keeping the good stuff to yourself. She turned to me. She tell you much about us? The old crowd? A little, I said. Did she tell you about Marcus? I felt Claire tense beside me. Marcus is here, she asked, over by the bar. Dana said the word wife with a little weight on it, watching Claire's face for a reaction. I just thought it might be awkward. You two were a whole thing back in the day. That was a long time ago, Claire said. Sure. Of course. Dana sipped her wine and looked at me. You're not the jealous type then. Good. She needs someone secure. She's hard to hold on to, this one. Always has been. Just when you think you've got her, off she goes. It was a small thing to say, but it landed in the exact spot it was aimed at, because it was true, and because I was the one person in the room who knew just how true it was. Off she goes. I felt Claire go still next to me. I think you've got her wrong, I said. Dana raised an eyebrow. Do I? You see someone who leaves. Maybe what's actually happening is she stays a lot longer than anyone realizes. She just doesn't make noise about it. I didn't look at Claire when I said it. I kept my eyes on Dana. People who hold on quietly are easy to misread. Dana didn't have anything for that. She gave a thin smile, said something about getting another drink, and moved off into the crowd. And the moment she was gone, Claire turned to me, and her eyes were too bright. You didn't have to do that, she said. You keep saying that tonight. Because you keep doing it. She pressed her lips together. That wasn't on the list. Defending me like that. Saying things like that. Then why? I didn't answer right away. Because the honest answer was tied up in the ring on her finger, and I wasn't ready to pull on that thread in the middle of a crowded room with Dana circling and Marcus by the bar. So instead I said, dance with me. She blinked. What? There's a dance floor. People dance at these things. It'll look strange if the famous boyfriend doesn't dance with you all night. I held out my hand. Come on. It's part of the act. She looked at my hand. She knew it wasn't part of the act. We both knew. But she took it anyway, and I led her out onto the floor where a few other couples were already moving slowly to whatever the song was. And I put my hand on her back, and she put her free hand on my shoulder, and we started to move. For a while, neither of us said anything. We just moved together, slow, and it was the closest we'd been all night. Closer than the hallway, close enough that I could feel her breathing. Her head was near my shoulder. The ring was somewhere between us, turned in against her palm, but I could feel it now, the small, hard shape of it through her hand, and I knew she could feel that I felt it. You saw it, she said finally, quietly, almost into my shoulder. I saw it. I meant to leave it at home. Her voice was unsteady. I told myself I would. And then tonight I was standing in front of the mirror, and I put it on without even deciding to. Like my hand just did it. I bought the gloves on the way to meet you Friday so you wouldn't see. That's how stupid this is. I planned around it instead of just taking it off. Why didn't you take it off? She didn't answer. We kept moving. You told me you'd give it back, I said. My voice was low, just for her. 3 years ago. You said you'd return it when you could. I know what I said. You never gave it back. I know. Why? She lifted her head and looked at me, and we'd stopped moving without realizing it, just standing in the middle of the floor while other couples turned around us. Not here, she said. Please. I can't do this here. Not with all of them watching and doing the math. She was right. Whatever this was, it wasn't something to crack open in the middle of her reunion with Dana somewhere in the crowd and Marcus by the bar and Becca telling everyone about the famous boyfriend. This had been buried for 3 years. It deserved better than a ballroom. Okay, I said. Then let's go somewhere else. We agreed to leave by 10. It's not 10. Forget the list, Claire. I held her eyes. You and I both know we stopped following it hours ago. We've been off the script since the car. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh, shaky and close to tears. Yeah, she said. We have. Then come on. I took her hand, the one with the ring, and I didn't let her turn it away this time. Let's get out of here and you can tell me the truth. The real one. Not the 4 times on the phone one. She looked at our hands, then she nodded. We left our drinks on a table and walked out together, past Becca, past the name tags, out the front doors into the cool night, leaving the noise behind us. Outside, the night air hit us both. The noise of the ballroom dropped away the moment the doors closed behind us, replaced by the sound of traffic somewhere off in the distance and our own footsteps on the pavement. There was a low wall near the parking lot, the kind people sit on while they wait for rides. Claire walked over to it and sat down. I sat next to her, leaving a little space between us. She looked at the ring on her hand for a long moment. She didn't turn it away anymore. She just looked at it. I lied to you, she said, when I said I'd give it back. I never planned to give it back. I knew the second you handed it to me that I was going to keep it. I just couldn't tell you that. Why not? Because if I told you I was keeping it, I'd have to explain why I was keeping it, and I couldn't explain that without explaining everything else. And I wasn't ready to. I'm still not sure I am. She took a breath. But you saw it now, so I guess I don't have a choice. I waited. I'd waited 3 years. I could wait another minute. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, she said. I need you to know that first, before I say anything else. That was never it. The thing I said at the door, that it wasn't you, I know that's what people say when they're lying. But it was the one true thing I said that whole day. It wasn't you. Then what was it? She was quiet for a moment, gathering it. 3 years ago, right before I left, my mom got sick. Really sick. You didn't know because I didn't tell you. It was the kind of thing where she needed someone full time, and my sister couldn't do it. And there wasn't money for anyone else to do it. So it was going to be me. I was going to have to move back home 400 miles away and put my whole life on hold for however long it took. And it took 2 years, as it turned out. I sat with that. You could have told me, I said. I would have come with you. I would have helped. I know you would have. Her voice cracked. That's exactly why I couldn't tell you. You had that ring, didn't you? I didn't know it for sure, but I could feel it coming. You were building something. You had your life going in a straight line, and it was a good line. And if I'd told you what was happening, you'd have thrown all of it away to come sit in my hometown with me and watch my mother get worse. You'd have done it without thinking twice, and I couldn't let you do that. I couldn't be the thing that pulled your whole life off course. So you decided for me. Yes. She wiped at her eyes. I made the call that I'd rather you hate me than waste years of your life on my situation. I thought if I just ended it clean, no explanation, you'd be angry for a while, and then you'd move on and build the life you were supposed to build. That was the plan. Leave with one bag so it didn't look like I'd thought about it too hard. Don't explain, because explaining would give you a way to argue me out of it. Just go. It was a lot to take in. For 3 years, I'd carried a version of that Sunday where she'd simply stopped wanting me, where I wasn't enough, where she'd looked at our life and found it lacking. And the real version was almost the opposite. She'd looked at our life and decided it was worth protecting from her own problems, even if protecting it meant destroying it. That wasn't your decision to make, I said. What I was willing to give up, that was mine. I know that now. She looked down at the ring. I knew it then too, honestly. But I was scared, and people do stupid final things when they're scared. I told myself I was being noble. Really, I was just terrified of watching you choose me, and then slowly regret it. So I didn't give you the chance to choose at all. I'm not proud of it. And the ring? I kept it because giving it back felt like agreeing that it was over for real. As long as I had it, some part of me hadn't fully let go. She turned it on her finger. I never wore it. Not once in 3 years. It sat in a drawer, same as it sat in yours, I'd guess. And then my mom got better, and I moved back, and I had my life again, and I kept telling myself I should mail it to you, or throw it away. I never did either one. She let out a small, broken laugh. And then I needed a fake boyfriend for one stupid night, and the only name I could think of was yours. The reunion was real, but I think I used it. I think I needed a reason to call you that didn't mean what calling you actually meant. There it was. The thing I'd suspected in the ballroom said out loud. And tonight, I said, the glove came off. You raised your glass. I forgot I had it on, she said. That's the truth. For 1 second tonight, I forgot I was supposed to be hiding it. Because for 1 second, it felt like we weren't pretending. And we weren't, were we? Not in the hallway. Not on that dance floor. No, I said. We weren't. She looked at me, and all the brightness she'd worn for the room was gone, and it was just her, scared and honest in a way she hadn't let herself be 3 years ago at the door. So now you know everything, she said. All of it. Why I left. Why I lied. Why I kept it. She held up her hand, the ring catching the light from the parking lot lamp. I'd understand if you got in your car and drove home and never called me again. After what I did, that would be fair. I didn't say anything. I was still holding all of it, turning it over, deciding what came next. I didn't get in my car. I didn't drive home. I sat there on that low wall next to her, and I let myself feel all of it, the anger and the relief and the 3 years of carrying the wrong story. You want to know what's been the hardest part of the last 3 years? I said. Tell me. It wasn't that you left. People leave. I could have made my peace with that eventually. I looked out at the parking lot. The hardest part was not knowing why. You left me with nothing to understand. Just one bag and a sundae, and it wasn't you, and then silence. I went over it 1,000 times trying to figure out what I did wrong. I rewrote that whole relationship in my head, looking for the place where I'd failed you, because that was the only explanation that made sense. If you'd left for no reason, then it had to be me. There was nothing else to blame. She flinched. I'm sorry. I didn't think about what it would do to you to not know. I was so focused on protecting you from my situation that I didn't see I was hurting you a different way. You spent 3 years thinking you were sparing me, I said, and I spent 3 years thinking I wasn't enough. We were both wrong about the same thing at the same time. That's a sad way to put it. It's an honest way to put it. We sat with that for a moment. A car pulled out of the lot, headlights sweeping over us, and then it was quiet again. Here's what I keep landing on, I said. I'm angry. I want to be clear about that. I'm angry that you made a decision about my life without asking me. I'm angry that you let me believe the worst thing about myself for 3 years when the truth was something I could have lived with. If you'd told me your mom was sick and you had to go, that would have hurt, but it would have been clean. I'd have understood it. Instead, you handed me a wound with no explanation and walked away. And that's a harder thing to forgive than the leaving itself. She nodded. She didn't try to defend it. You're right. You're allowed to be angry. I'd be angry too. But, I said, and she looked up. Here's the other thing I keep landing on. I understand why you did it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. You were 25 and your mom was dying and you were scared and you thought you were doing the loving thing by getting out of my way. That's not the act of someone who stopped caring. That's the act of someone who cared so much she got it badly wrong. I shook my head. It's a stupid kind of love, but it's not no love. It's the opposite of what I thought it was. She was crying now, quietly, not bothering to hide it. I made peace with a version of you that didn't exist, I said. A version that found me lacking and left. I built a whole story around her, and I let her keep me from trusting anyone for 3 years. And it turns out she was never real. The real you kept my ring in a drawer for 3 years because letting it go felt like a betrayal. I let out a breath. I don't know what to do with that yet, but I know the angry version of this story I've been telling myself is dead now. It can't survive what you just told me. I never wanted you to carry any of it, she said. If I could go back, I'd tell you the truth. I'd let you choose. Even if you chose to come with me and we ended up resenting each other in some apartment in my hometown, at least it would have been honest. At least you'd have known you mattered enough to be told. I did matter enough to be told, I said. You just didn't believe your own choice would survive my opinion of it. So you took the choice away. Yeah, she wiped her face. I did. I thought about Dana in the ballroom, saying just when you think you've got her, off she goes. I thought about how wrong that was, how Dana saw a woman who couldn't commit when the truth was a woman who'd committed so hard to protecting someone that she'd burned her own life down to do it. People do the math on each other in 30 seconds, and they almost always get it wrong. Can I ask you something now? I said. Anything. The reunion, the fake boyfriend, all of it. If you'd kept the ring all this time and you still felt whatever you feel, why not just call me? 3 years and you never picked up the phone. Why did it take a fake date to get you to dial my number? She was quiet for a long moment. Because calling you for real meant admitting what I wanted, she said. And admitting what I wanted meant risking that you'd say no, that you'd moved on, that you had someone else, that I'd burned it down for nothing. As long as I never called, the possibility stayed alive. The reunion gave me a reason to call that I could survive being rejected over. If you said no to being my fake boyfriend, that wouldn't kill me. If you said no to me, the real me, after everything, I don't think I'd have recovered. So you hid behind the favor. I hid behind the favor, she agreed. I'm good at hiding. The gloves were just the most literal version of something I've been doing for 3 years. I almost laughed. It was such a her thing to say, that clear-eyed honesty about her own worst habits, and it was one of the things I'd missed without letting myself name it. I looked at her sitting there in the parking lot light, mascara running, my ring on her finger, the bravest and most cowardly person I knew, all at once. Okay, I said. I think it's my turn to decide something. She looked at me, and I could see her bracing for it. She'd already given me the out. She expected me to take it. That was the pattern she lived by, after all. Decide for the other person before they can decide for you. Assume the no so the no can't hurt as much. Before you say anything, she said quickly, I want you to know there's no version of this where you owe me a thing. I called you out of nowhere and dropped 3 years of mess in your lap in a parking lot. If you want to drive me home and we never speak again, that's not me being noble this time. That's just what would be fair. You don't have to fix what I broke. Are you done? I asked. She closed her mouth. I'm done. Good. Because you keep trying to make this decision for me too. I turned to face her properly. You did it 3 years ago at the door. You're doing it again right now. Telling me what would be fair, giving me the exit, deciding on my behalf that I'd probably want to leave. Stop. I get to decide what I want. That's the whole thing I've been angry about. So let me actually do it. She went still. Here's what I want, I said. I'm not going to pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. I can't undo what it did to me, and I won't act like I can. If we do this, we do it knowing it's going to take time for me to fully trust that you won't disappear again the second things get hard. That's real, and I'm not going to hide it from you to make tonight easier. That's fair, she said quietly. But I'm not getting in my car and driving home. I've spent 3 years getting in the car and driving home in a manner of speaking, telling myself I was over you, that I'd moved on, that the steady, predictable thing was to let it go. And then you called on Thursday and I said yes before you even finished asking. And I think some part of me knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't agreeing to a favor. I was answering a phone I'd been waiting 3 years to ring. Her eyes filled again. I never stopped, I said. That's the truth I've been hiding behind my own gloves. I told everyone I was fine. I told myself I'd let go. But I never met anyone I wanted to give that ring to instead, and I never threw away the memory of you. And the second I heard your voice on Thursday, everything I'd buried came right back up. So don't sit there and tell me what's fair. The fair thing and the true thing aren't the same, and I'm tired of choosing the fair one. What are you saying? She asked. Barely above a whisper. I'm saying I want to try, for real this time. Not the fake version, not the version with rules and a list and a clean made-up history. The real one, with all the mess in it, the dying mother and the lie at the door and the ring you couldn't give back. All of it. I paused. But I have one condition, and it's not on any list. Anything. No more deciding for me. Ever. If something's wrong, you tell me. If you're scared, you tell me. If you think the loving thing is to protect me from something, you let me be part of that decision. The way you left almost did more damage than the leaving itself. I can survive almost anything except being shut out again. So promise me that, or there's no point starting. I promise, she said, and there was nothing performed in it. I promise, no more deciding for you, no more gloves, no more hiding. I looked at her hand, at the ring catching the lamplight. And that, I said, nodding at it. I need you to understand what it is. It's not a proposal. We're not there. We've got 3 years of distance to close before we get anywhere near that again. So I don't want you wearing it like a finish line we already crossed. She nodded and started to slide it off her finger. You're right. I'll give it back. I should have given it back years ago. That's not what I said. I reached out and stopped her hand before the ring came off. I don't want it back. I want you to keep it. But I want it to mean what it actually means right now, which is that we're starting over. Not that we're finishing. A beginning, not a promise we haven't earned yet. She left the ring where it was. She looked down at our hands, mine over hers, the ring underneath, and then back up at me. A beginning, she repeated. A real one. No script. For a second, neither of us moved. We were sitting on a low wall outside our high school reunion, both of us a little wrecked, the noise of the party still going faintly behind the doors, and it was nothing like how I'd ever imagined this moment if I'd let myself imagine it at all. It wasn't clean. It wasn't the Tuesday in October I'd planned 3 years ago. It was a Saturday in a parking lot with mascara and apologies and a ring that meant something new. But it was real. And after 3 years of a story I'd made up about a woman who never existed, real was the only thing I wanted. Okay, she said, and she almost smiled. The first real one of the night, the kind that wasn't for any room. Okay, a beginning. I stood up and held out my hand, the way I had inside, except this time it wasn't part of any act, and there was no one watching and nothing to sell. Come on, I said. Let me take you home. The real way, this time, the honest way. She took my hand. And this time, neither of us let go. It's been 4 months now. I want to tell you it was easy after that night, that we drove off into the dark and everything fixed itself. It wasn't and it didn't. The first few weeks were careful, we took it slow on purpose. Coffee that wasn't a rehearsal this time. Long phone calls that didn't have a favor attached. I caught myself watching her sometimes, waiting for the bag by the door, waiting for her to decide for me again and disappear. She caught me doing it once. "You're waiting for me to leave," she said. "Sometimes," I admitted. "I can't help it. I know. I figured I would have to earn that back. So I'm going to keep showing up until your gut stops bracing." And she did. She kept showing up. Slowly, the bracing got quieter. She kept her promise too, the big one. No more deciding for me. When her sister had a problem a couple months in and Claire's first instinct was to handle it alone and not bother me with it, she stopped herself and told me instead. It was small. It was also everything. That was the exact muscle that had broken us the first time, and watching her use it differently did more to rebuild my trust than any apology could have. We talk about her mom now. That's been good for both of us. Her mother is well these days, and I've met her, and she pulled me aside the first time and said, "She kept your ring, you know. I found it in her drawer once and asked her about it, and she wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the day." I told her I knew. I told her I had it on good authority. The ring is still on Claire's hand. We never had the conversation about taking it off again, because we didn't need to. It means what we agreed it means. A beginning, not a finish line. Some mornings, I see it catch the light the way it did at that toast, and instead of the floor dropping out of my stomach, I just feel steady. The steady that my mother calls predictable. Turns out predictable isn't the worst thing to be when the thing you're being predictable about is showing up for someone every day. Now the revenge. I told you at the start there was revenge in this, and I owe you the rest of it, because it's not the kind you're probably expecting. A few weeks after the reunion, Dana found Claire online and sent her a long message. The gist of it was that she'd heard from Becca that Claire's serious boyfriend had walked out of the reunion early with her. And wasn't that just like Claire? Another relationship that couldn't even last one night in public. Dana had spent 10 years waiting for Claire to fail, and she decided our early exit was the failure she'd been waiting for. She was already telling people. Claire showed me the message. Her hands were shaking. The old fear was right there, the thing that made her run 3 years ago, the terror of being the one everyone does the math on and writes off. "You don't have to answer her," I said. "People like Dana feed on the answer." "I know, but I'm tired of letting her decide what my life adds up to." So here was the revenge, and it was the quietest revenge you could imagine. Claire didn't send Dana a cruel message back. She didn't expose her or fight her or play her game. Instead, she posted one photo, just one. The two of us, taken a week earlier, nothing staged about it. Both of us laughing at something off camera, the ring clearly visible on her hand. No caption explaining anything, no mention of Dana. Just a picture of two people who were obviously, undeniably, real together, the kind of photo you can't fake and can't argue with. The whole class saw it. Becca made sure of that. And the math everyone had been doing on Claire for 10 years, the math Dana had been feeding, quietly corrected itself. The girl who couldn't hold on to anything was holding on to something after all, not because she announced it, because she just let the truth sit there where everyone could see it. Dana never messaged her again. That was the revenge. Not destroying the person who spent a decade rooting for Claire to fall, just refusing to fall. Just being real and happy in plain sight, which is the only thing a person like Dana truly can't stand, because there's nothing in it to attack. The best answer to someone who wants your life to be empty is to live a full one and not bother explaining it to them. I think about that night a lot. The phone ringing on a Thursday with the cold noodles going stale in my lap. The version of me with his thumb over the decline button. If I'd pressed it, none of this would exist. I'd still be telling myself the story about the woman who found me lacking and left, and Claire would still be hiding a ring in a drawer and a truth she couldn't say. We'd both have stayed safe inside our separate lives forever. She asked me to be her fake boyfriend for one night. That was the deal. One dinner, one performance, then back to not knowing each other. And somewhere between the coffee shop and the hallway and the toast and that parking lot wall, the fake thing turned into the only real thing either of us had let ourselves want in 3 years. She forgot to take off the ring. I've thought about that 100 times, but I don't think she forgot, really. I think some honest part of her put it on, hoping I'd see, hoping I'd ask, hoping the question would finally crack open the thing she'd never been brave enough to say out loud. The glove was the lie, the ring was the truth, and the truth won. It usually does, if you give it long enough to come up into the light. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next video.